Hello and welcome to Baiju's Exam Prep IAS. A very warm good evening to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you to today's session of the weekly current affairs webinar. Today we'll be discussing the most important and relevant news stories from the last week. Good evening, everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I know you are fresh off your BHLP class. A lot of you have not still joined. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes, 3, 4 minutes maybe. Let everyone come in so that they are not missing out on anything if they are coming in from their BHLP session. And in the meanwhile, yes, thank you very much for all your wishes that I'm receiving. Difficult to take anyone's name, but yes, all of you who have been typing Teachers Day, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. As I said, we'll wait for a few minutes, let everyone join in, and then we'll begin. And till that time, I also will give you a piece of advice. I'll give you a piece of advice from what I saw actually here. If in you have a question, any question regarding your preparation or whatever, please don't ask that in the first 5 minutes. It gets all hidden in the bundles of good evening, hello, hi. So your question will never be seen. Please make sure that if you have a question that you really want to be seen or answered, please don't ask that in the first 5 minutes or so, because in the first 5 minutes, we are just flooded with good evening messages. So your question most probably gets hidden all through. So just in case you were asking any of a question, maybe reserve it for later. That's a good trick for you. Yashaswini, I've had pretty good teachers. I remember a school teacher that I'm still in touch with. I'm in touch with a couple of my teachers from the school. Yeah, so I don't know, I really liked my history teacher in the school. I've never found a very good teacher after that. Good evening. Ambika, yes, I will reply, don't worry. Okay, people still joining in from their BHLP class. Okay. Good evening. Okay, till that time, let me just leave you on the topics page so that at least you know what the topics are. So even if we wait for a couple of minutes, you should be able to see something at least on your screen. Good evening, good evening. Sakshi, BHLP is the online classes that students have. So in short, we call it the BHLP, Byju's Home Learning Program. Just the live classes that you have. That is what we call BHLP. Yes, Saidi, that's why I'm waiting. Don't worry. I know some teachers leave your class pretty late, so I'm giving you chance to come back. Neha, BTLP is the recorded tab classes. The live classes are BHLP. Don't worry, it's the same for you. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, good time to begin. Is it good time to begin now? Should we wait for a couple of more minutes? Are your friends still joining in? Okay. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So, once again, a very warm good evening. I hope all of you are doing good. As you know, every Tuesday we have a current affairs webinar. The endeavor is simple: discuss the most relevant and important news from mainly the prelims point of view, but sometimes even from the mains point of view, that were in the news in the last week or so. So, last 7, 8 days, what news we have seen, especially from an examination point of view, we try and analyze that along with a practice question for each of these. That is what our agenda entirely is. So, this is where we are. Uh, these are the topics that we'll be discussing. These are 8 topics that have been in the news. We'll start with the Air Quality Index report. As you know, there was a big headline that if you're living in Delhi, you are losing out on these many years of your life. If you're living here, you are losing out on these many years of your life. So, all of that was in the Air Quality Life Index report. So we'll be discussing what that is. Secondly, we will be discussing the PLI scheme for the IT hardware. What exactly is this? Why is it again in the news? What is the government doing about it? Third, we'll be discussing about the Elephant Corridor of India report. What are elephant corridors, the status of elephants, etc. Then, fourth news, we have our first garrison. Garrison means an army establishment that has become carbon negative. What is it? Where is it? That we'll be discussing. Fifth topic will be the expansion of the BRICS. Lot in the news. BRICS will have a much broader look now with many more members coming in. Then we have the Heal by India or Heal in India initiative. Seventh topic, emperor penguins, many of them losing their life because of the melting of the glaciers. And in the end, agri ikagai that was in the news. So this is what we will be discussing. Okay, perfect. Now I hope all of you have settled down. Perfect. Okay. So let's begin with the very first topic that we have here for you. The first one that we have is the Air Quality Life Index report. I'm sure all of you would have seen these headlines in the newspapers this week or so, that if you're in Delhi, you're losing out on these many years of your life because of the pollution. Your life on an average is cut down by so and so. Now, this is not really any new news to us. As unfortunate as it may sound, we are pretty used to it. Many of the Indian cities, many of the big Indian cities, Delhi, Mumbai, etc., constantly remain in the list of some of the most polluted cities in the entire world. However, this report specifically gives us numbers, data, that is, at these many years will be cut down from your life because you're living in such and such city or such and such country. What is the report all about? Let's start. Basically, this report says in Delhi, on an average, your life expectancy will be cut down by 11.9 years. So, if any one of you is joining in from Delhi, please make sure you crack the exam in your first attempt. You may not have a lot of years to live. So, make sure that you do hurry up with your preparation. Whatever you wanted to achieve, you don't really have a lot of years going ahead. Okay. So, whatever life expectancy you could have had, minus 11.9 would be what you will be living on an average in Delhi. Is this report prepared by any international organization? Not really. It's not a governmental organization. This is a report that has been published by Energy Policy Institute at the University of Chicago. These kind of bits and pieces information may not seem relevant right now, but in the prelims examination, they may ask this information as well. They may ask you which is the agency behind publishing of this report. So make sure you make a note of that as well. Anyways, every year, one or two questions from specific reports can be asked. Even in the mains examination, you can quote such reports to actually get pretty good marks. You can quote such kind of reports about what do they say about India generally, what do they say about Delhi, depending upon what the question is. Anyways, so this was the main headline of the report. It's, if you want to have comfort in the fact that we are not the only ones, then maybe this will bring you good news. We are not the only ones as such that have been impacted by pollution as per this report. If you look at India's neighborhood, in fact, if you look at most of the South Asian countries, you will see that a lot of these countries have been affected by this. For example, Bangladesh on an average has lost 6.8 years. India on an average losing out 5.3 years, Nepal on an average 4.6, etc. Please remember, this report mainly focuses on the PM 2.5. I hope all of you understand what is PM. PM is particulate matter. PM is particulate matter. So basically, the particulate matter 2.5 would be the diameter of that particular component. Now, the logic is the air that we breathe has a lot of very small, tiny particles that are not even visible to our naked eye. When you breathe air and those particles get into your body, our body does have certain mechanism to stop those. Have you noticed or did you remember when we were kids, even today, your parents or your grandparents would always tell you, breathe through your nose and not your mouth. Have you realized this? Your parents, your grandparents, even the doctors, they always suggest breathe through the nose and not through the mouth. Remember, why did they say this? Because breathing through the nose is much healthier. Why is that? The nose has hair, the hair that we're very happy to trim. The nose has hair. So when you actually breathe in, what those hairs do, they actually act as filters. They actually act as filters. No, Valmiki, the class is not recorded. See, I just proved it by taking your name. So the hair that we have, they act as filters and they stop those dust particles from going in. The problem is when these particles are too small, then even these hair, the filter system can't really do anything about it. So when the particle is too small, 2.5, the smaller the particle, the more dangerous it is. For example, in terms of danger, PM 1.0 would be the most dangerous. Then it would be PM 2.5, that would be more dangerous than PM 10, etc. So basically, the lower the diameter, the more dangerous that particular particle will be. Why? Because it will be extremely difficult for our filtration system. When these particles go in, they become a part of our bloodstream. They may clog certain of our organs, they may clog the blood circulation, and that becomes problematic. So this report mainly tracks the PM 2.5 on an annual average, and then they identify where exactly is it that these particles would have the negative impact. If someone here is watching from Pakistan, which I don't think, do you are in a better position as a Pakistani, you will be losing about 3.9 years of your life on an average, but we are losing 5.3. So we still have a lot of catching up to do with them at least. Now, we are mainly focusing on this report on our region, although this report talks about other regions of the world as well, but we are mainly focusing on the South Asian region. In the South Asian region, as we just discussed, India came second worst after Bangladesh only. Now, the problem is, if you look at nations such as Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, we don't really have a lot of options. See, there's a dichotomy that we are stuck in. Please understand. If the government wants to give more job to the people, out of the main three sectors of the economy, agriculture, services, manufacturing, the biggest job creator potentially is manufacturing. Manufacturing can create much more jobs as compared to services, as compared to agriculture. But the problem is the same manufacturing would lead to your pollution levels going up. So there is a difficult decision that any government in a developing nation has to make. Similar is the case here as well. For example, we have read so much about India doing so well in solar, the solar energy becoming better, etc., or solar initiatives by the government of India. But the fact is, even though a lot of progress has been made on solar, India still remains a lot dependent on the fossil fuels. India still generates most of our electricity through coal. So all of that is adding to the pollution levels. Please don't let the news such as solar plants and their success fool you. If you look at the real numbers, India still is heavily reliant on fossil fuels and it will remain like that for some years at least until we actually find a storage solution for solar. That is why our situation will not drastically improve. Yes, we are making great strides when it comes to solar, wind, hydro, but we still have a long way to go. Anyways, the question is, do you have to remember these percentage points or not? Do you have to remember these percentage points? I would not suggest this. Please remember, in case from the prelims point of view, if let's say you do have a question on the report, from the prelims point of view, you just have to remember the publisher of the report, maybe India's rank in the region, that would be good enough. But remembering this percentage increase or decrease would be a bit too much. I would not really advise you to do that. You might remember one or two facts. If you really want to quote that in the mains examination, it might come in really handy. But in the prelims, you are not expected to remember all these exact percentages as such. Anyways, this data also from the prelims point of view is not that relevant as long as you remember the trend. Just remember the trend. Trend as in, is it increasing or decreasing? Over the past few years, has it increased or has it decreased? For example, the UPSC does ask these kind of questions. I'll give you an example. So UPSC may ask you that in the last 10 years, migration from rural to the urban areas in India has increased constantly over the last 10 years. So the trend based questions would be more relevant. Rather than UPSC saying that 10 crore people have migrated from villages to the cities, they will not ask that. Rather, they will ask that increasing number of people are coming in or the trend has been declining. Similarly, here as well, rather than focusing on the exact number of the pollutants or the exact quantity, my suggestion would rather be to focus more on the trend, whether is it increasing or is it decreasing. That would be much, much more helpful to you. Anyways, we all are very well aware of the health risk of pollution. I do not really have to expand on that. The health risks are immense: the cardiovascular diseases, reduction in the life expectancy, malnutrition, etc. All of them are dependent somewhere on the pollution levels that we have. There is a reason why Delhi, Mumbai, these cities constantly feature amongst the most polluted cities in not just India, but the entire world. And the same is the case with Delhi. Delhi's annual average, as per the report of PM 2.5, was found to be 126.5 micrograms per meter square, which is 25 times more than what the WHO has suggested. So, by any stretch of imagination, we are much, much above the level. Now, one other thing, the report also tells us what would happen in the scenario that we are able to reduce the 2.5 levels. They don't just tell us what exactly is the current scenario, they also tell us that in an off chance that we actually are able to curtail the PM 2.5 levels, what would happen? As per the report, it says that the government of India did work on the National Clean Air Program to achieve 40% of contribution from 2020, or to reduce 40% of our particulate pollution by 2026. As per the report, if we are able to achieve this level, average life expectancy would increase by 7.9 months. So there is a chance of things becoming better if we achieve our own goal. 4.4 years is the increase expected in case of Delhi residents if the government of India is able to achieve its own goal of the National Clean Air Program. This is where your, my, our contribution and our ask from the government comes in. So, number one, it also tells us what exactly is the current situation, and the report also tells us what happens in case the situation improves going forward. Now, I'm sure all of you would have heard the AQI is not something that we are unfamiliar with. In fact, we have AQI in India as well. You constantly see these AQI rankings, AQI ratings coming up time and time again. We'll come to that as well, how AQI is measured. By the way, I took this snippet yesterday from the report only. If you go to the website of this institute who has published the report, you can actually download this report. It's not a very heavy report, it's a few pages. The report also tells us that apart from PM 2.5, there are other threats to life expectancy in India. So, life expectancy in India is getting slashed not just because of PM 2.5, there are other factors as well. As per this report only, they say cardiovascular diseases, high sympathetic blood pressure, tobacco, child and maternal malnutrition. All of these are the top threats that India faces in cutting down our life expectancy. This is again an important piece of information which you can quote in the mains examination. Whenever you have a question about health, whenever you have a question about, let's say, our malnutrition levels, whenever you have a question about life expectancy, feel free to quote all this data. Although PM 2.5 remains the top threat, we have other threats as well that have been mentioned here. This data has been taken from this report only, the report that we are just discussing. Also, this is our India's standard of AQI. You would have seen Indian cities being given this AQI rating time and time again. It is an initiative that started in India in 2014. AQI rating is from 0 to 500, where the last 100, 4 to 500 is severe, 0 to 50 is good, 51 to 100 is satisfactory, then moderate, poor. Usually, Delhi remains in, I would say, severe to very poor category. In fact, I still remember a few years back reading a headline, and this is a true headline. The headline was Delhi air improves to very poor. There was a headline, Delhi air improves to very poor. Why improves to very poor? Because it was severe, so it improved to become very poor. So just imagine Delhi getting all happy. Why? Because in their report card, it was very poor. Just imagine your parents seeing that report card. Anyways, that is the reality that we are living in. That is how AQI works. Okay. So this is your question for this topic. Let's see if you can answer this, and then we'll be taking up your question. Read this carefully. Rishabh is saying, is my health okay? Rishabh, my health is fine so far. As fine as a person can be in India. Should we give you the options? Okay, let's start with the options then. Chandra Jyoti Singh, I have dust allergy. Will I face problems in Delhi? Chandra, please consult a doctor, man. I'm not the best person to give you medical advice. 44% got this one right. The answer here is B. Any two. That is, actually, the first and the third one are correct. The second one is wrong. It is not based on 10 pollutants. How many, if not 10? How many, if not 10? Yes, 8. 8. It's based on 8 pollutants. I'll tell you what these 8 are, as you can see. So basically, these 8 are PM10, PM 2.5, then we have nitrous oxide, ozone, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, ammonia, and then lead. So these are the ones that we have taken up. Not we, but these are the ones that are considered in the AQI rating. And then we get to a number, and then the number actually comes up. That is how it usually works. Okay, before I go to the next topic, let me quickly take up a few questions that you have asked, and then we'll go ahead. Okay. Jayashri has a question. What is non-attainment cities, sir? Jayashri, the cities that are not able to attain the target set, the cities that are not able to attain that, that's not non-attainment cities. Saurav has a question. How many PM is good or not injurious for our health? One prime minister is enough, I think. Okay, sorry. The question was how many PM is good and not injurious for health? See, as I said in the beginning of the class, PM is particulate matter. So the smaller the PM size or the smaller size of the particle, the more dangerous it is. As simple as that. Now, not to say that larger particles are not harmful. If there's a big rock, even that is harmful if it drops on you. But when we are talking about particles that we inhale, the simple idea is that the smaller the particles, the more dangerous they are. Okay. Then I have a question from Veena. What is the duration of staying in Delhi in order to get a life expectancy reduced by 12 years? That's not how it works, Veena. That you stay in Delhi, your life expectancy is cut by 12 years. That's not how it works. It's an average, it's a law of average. It's like saying if India has an average life expectancy of 75 years, then what should I do to live more than 75 years? That's not how it works. If every life expectancy is 75, doesn't mean that you will be the one who will live till 75. You may live till 95, you may live till, not you, someone else may live till much younger. It's an average. That's not how it works. That's not like how it will apply to me. That's how the averages work, right? I hope you understand averages. Um, then Sahil is saying, what is PMI? Sahil, PMI is, there are a lot of different contexts of PMI. Purchasing Managers Index, maybe if you're referring to that, I'm not sure which PMI you're referring to. So you have to tell me which PMI. Please don't ask me questions about whether living in Noida is safe, what happens in Greater Noida, what is it, where do I live in Delhi. Please, those questions are not relevant, man. Don't worry. It's a good chance to take whether Noida will kill you first or Delhi air will kill you first, but I can't answer that for you. Anyway, Sanskar, yes. BHLP, I take governance classes on BHLP. Yes. Okay. Okay, those who joined in slightly late, you can go through the PPT, but I'll just repeat once again. Those who joined in late, the simple idea is that if the situation remains the same, in Delhi, the life expectancy will get reduced by over 11 years because the PM 2.5 levels in India are increasing. What is PM 2.5? Particulate matter 2.5, very small particles that we inhale when we breathe, and they go into our bloodstreams and cause a lot of issues. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I think good time to move on to the second one. Once again, thank you very much for your wishes of Teachers' Day. We can stop those wishes now. Teachers is about to end in 3 hours anyway. Okay, so you can stop with those wishes. Now, let's go ahead. Okay, so the second topic that we have is a PLI scheme for the IT hardware. Now, it's a pretty interesting topic because, first, it's a topic that is very relevant for the mains exam also and is slightly relevant for the prelims as well. So, basically, what exactly is PLI scheme? The simple idea is, so PLI stands for Production Linked Incentive. It's called Production Linked Incentive Scheme. See, the idea is simple. The government of India said to the companies that come and manufacture in India. If you manufacture in India and you manufacture at least certain minimum quantities, for example, let's assume Indian government had a pact with Apple. We told them that you come and manufacture iPhones in India. Let's say we gave them a target. We said manufacture 10 lakh iPhones in India. If you reach 10 lakh iPhones, then what we'll do, we will, let's say, not take electricity bill from you. Your electricity is gone. Gone as in electricity bill will be free. Anyways, governments in India are very much, they are expert these days of not taking electricity bill. So why not from Apple also? So we told them that no electricity bill, but the condition is you have to touch 10 lakh iPhones in your production. So what, this is a very simplistic example of production linked incentive scheme, PLI, that we will give you some incentive based on you meeting a certain target of your production. As simple as that. The government of India has been trying this for a few years because that is the best way to bring in manufacturing in India. We have been importing a lot of products, especially the IT hardware. We want to cut down our import of IT hardware like laptops, tablets, etc. We want to cut down the import, which is mainly happening from China. So, what we are doing is we are incentivizing the companies to come to India. The problem is Companies, why don't they come to India, or why would they hesitate in coming to India? See, when these big manufacturing giants come to any country, when you make such a big investment, you look for certain things. You want good infrastructure, you want labor that is educated, that is good in technical skills, you want laws that are stable, you want judiciary to be fine. A lot of factors go into it, and India obviously does not really have a lot of those factors in its favor. So India has to incentivize them. This is what we are doing with the PLI scheme. You would have read recently the government of India said that we are imposing certain limits on the import of IT hardware. If you would have seen the news, you would require a certain license, only then you would be able to import laptops, etc. in India. The reason was that we wanted to ensure that companies come and manufacture in India. After the government of India launched this scheme, a lot of IT firms did apply to make laptops and PCs, PC personal computers in India under this scheme. However, not a lot of these big players have come in. Like Apple has still not committed to be under this scheme. Although some of the companies have, but Apple, etc., have not really committed that we will be a part of this scheme. Asus, Dell, HP, Foxconn that makes iPhones, they have said that okay, we will be submitting applications to make laptops, etc. But again, there is nothing that has been finalized so far. And as we know, we have seen from the past that a lot of companies back out. For example, I don't know how many of you heard the news. A few years back, Foxconn, for example, moved out of its deal with Vedanta. Did you notice that? A few weeks back, Foxconn was to be a part of this semiconductor manufacturing plant with Vedanta, but they walked out saying that no, we have not been able to finalize. So just because these companies or any of the companies have submitted application doesn't really mean that it will actually go through. Submitting application and then actually going ahead and making sure that at the end the companies come and start manufacturing, it's a very long drawn process. A lot can go wrong in that process. This is why the government also is extremely cautious about this approach. This performance linked incentive scheme, again the idea is simple. We want to make sure that the companies come and manufacture in India. For that, we are willing to give them incentive as well. Incentives can be in various ways. The simplest example I gave you was electricity bill. It can be land given to them at a much lower cost. It can be lower taxes. For example, the government might say that we will not take corporate taxes from you for 5 years. These are called tax breaks. So government may give tax breaks, etc., in order to bring these companies into India. It depends upon what kind of a deal the government strikes. Recently, the government of India even increased the budget as well for the PLI scheme. So we are hoping that the increased budget will bring in more companies. But again, the problem is, see, for such huge companies that already have their manufacturing plants set up in, let's say, China or Vietnam, to bring them all together into into a new nation will take a lot of effort. When you set up a manufacturing plant, let's say in China or Vietnam, you make a lot of investment, and no company would like to just disrupt all of that and come to India all of a sudden just because we like India. No, there has to be much more than that for them to come to a new place all of a sudden, such as India, and actually start their manufacturing. Government of India has increased the budget at least for now, hoping that we would be able to get more and more companies, because ultimately there are two objectives that we are trying to fulfill. First, suffice the local demand. In India, the demand for laptops, the demand for mobiles, etc., is extremely high. We are a very highly populated country, a country that is increasingly going digital. There are new and new people getting their hands on laptops, mobile phones, etc. And the next stage would be to become an export hub. It's a long term strategy, but it's not just about sufficing a local demand that will lead to decrease in import, it will also be aimed at becoming an export hub later on. That is what we are hoping for, but it's a long term plan. Now, why is it that the government started this scheme? The idea was simple. We need to reduce our dependence on countries such as China. For example, if you look at the numbers, India has seen an increase in import of electronic goods. During April June this year, import of electronic goods increased to $6.96 billion. It's a huge number, and increasingly, most of it is coming from China. That is why the government of India has increased the PLI scheme budget of, and they have made it to 17,000 crore, hoping that this will attract more and more companies to actually come to India and launch their manufacturing into India. Secondly, is it something that we are doing specifically for China? Of course, yes. Would the government say this? Of course, no. So we are. It's it's everyone's guess that yes, we are obviously doing it with an eye on China. We do not want our import to increase from China right now. Our trade deficit with China is over $1 billion. Sorry, over $100 billion. That is not trade. That is trade deficit. Just the trade deficit part is over $100 billion. Means the difference between our import and our export to China has now crossed over $100 billion at a time that India and China are not having the best of relationship, at a time when Xi Jinping has declined to come to G20 also. Our dependency on China for all these products do not augur well for India. And that is why India is hoping that maybe not immediately, but at least in the long term, gradually we would be able to become self sufficient, at least in these things. Highest imports from China usually come in the form of laptops, palm tops, etc. Imports are from China mainly. Every single month, we usually have about $500 million of import coming in. Kishan, billion, man, billion, $100 billion. Million is nothing for them. $100 billion of trade deficit. As per the last year numbers, that's the number that we have reached with China. Anyways, pretty sad story, man. Okay, let's do this practice question. Let's see if you know this. Palm top is something that you can hold on palm. So very small laptops that you can hold on palm, that is called palm top. That's called a palm top. Very small size laptop, basically. These are palm tops. Tabs, etc. You can call tabs also as palm tops. Okay. Should we start? Done. 38% people got this right. The reason I have asked you this question is it's actually a question that UPSC has asked in 2016. This was a 2016 question by UPSC. The answer is D. Import cover basically means how many months of import can we have just by the international reserves that we have. How much money have we saved? That money would suffice for how many months of import? That is called the import cover. UPSC did ask this question in 2016. So the answer here would be D. Okay. Before moving on, wow, a lot of questions have come in. Let me see a few questions. Syam has a question. What should we do as a citizen to reduce air pollution? See, there are small little changes that you can make in your lifestyle, obviously. That is what the Prime Minister has also said, the LIFE initiative, LIFE, making changes in your lifestyle using public transportation whenever it is possible. The problem is that in India, it's not possible to use public transportation at most of the places. uh, maybe buying an electric car, getting your pollution in check for your personal vehicles, etc. That is what you can do. Vechri is saying there are many index which come on a daily basis. How do we know which are important? It's a good question. How do we know which are important? Priority should be given to those indices that are coming in from international government agencies. Let's say UN, uh, World Bank, IMF. Once you cover that, only after that, see those indices that are mainly focused on India, that make the headlines about India. That should be good enough. Then Sheikh has a question. Is Government of India launched this laptop scheme because Jio launched the laptop? Maybe, maybe not. How does it make a difference? UPSC will not ask this, and it will not really have an impact on your life. Don't worry. Even if Jio launches a laptop, what is the problem? Let's go ahead with it. Jio is the one that reduced our data prices, right? Sanskar has a question. What does that mean that Apple laptop won't be available in country as government banned the import? No, 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 Sanskar. See, government has not banned the import. So basically, what happened? I'll give you a simple example. So right now, if you want to, let's say, order a laptop from China, okay, you personally, what can you do? You can simply go on Alibaba.com website of China, and they will basically send a laptop to you. A lot of traders in India have been buying stuff from China very easily. They go to China, buy it, book it by courier, it comes by ship, etc. What the government has done is they have said laptops, etc. Now they will be imported by only those who have been licensed to do this by the government of India. This is the what the government has done. Government has not said that no laptop can be imported. Nothing like that has happened. Just that earlier import of laptops, etc., was easier, open to almost everyone. Now only licensed people who have been licensed traders, only they can import. So the import will be reduced drastically. That is what the government has done. It's not that they have said that no one will import. Nothing like that. Then I have a question from Bhanu. How by increasing budget India can attract companies? So Bhanu, if we have more budget, we can have this kind of a deal with more companies. If I only have 100 rupees to give, I can only attract one company. If I have 1,000 rupees to give, I can attract five, six companies. Okay, I'll give you 200 rupees, 200 rupees to you, 300 to you, and then you come. So by increasing the budget, you are obviously giving yourself a better chance of getting these companies into your net. That is the idea. Okay, perfect. So these are the questions given to me. The next question that we have is again a kind of a report. Elephant Corridor of India report. What exactly are elephant corridors? Elephant corridors, in very simple term, means a dedicated area given for the elephants to move. So wherever there is a significant population of elephants in India, what we have done is we have built elephant corridors. So elephant corridors are places where the elephants can travel, be safe, they will not be hunted, etc. The government of India will make sure that these uh, elephant corridors are well surveillanced, they are looked after. This is the simple idea of what exactly is an elephant corridor. So basically, this report was released by Government of India's own Ministry of Environment just last week. It is called the Elephant Corridor Report 2023. The simple idea, the main highlight of the report is 40% elephant corridors have or their use have increased. So basically, more and more elephants are using these corridors to travel from one place to the other. Because see, the idea is simple. Let's say there is a forest here, there is a forest here, there is a road in between. So if an elephant has to cross over in search of food, in search of water, from where do they go? They can't just stop for you to stop at the red light and then they will go here. That's not how it works. They won't have bridges, etc. So what the government has to do is, what the governments do, they try and create some passages between the forest. So for example, maybe the road will now go over this, and below the road they will make a corridor so that the elephants can travel from one forest to the other forest. These are small corridors that are actually made to connect these areas where there is elephant population, because so that they can travel. See, for any wild animal, they need to travel constantly, because if they stay at one single place, they will exhaust all the resources. At the end of the day, the water, not just the water, the food that they are eating, they can't just remain constant at one single place in search of food, in search of their prey. They actually keep moving. So the governments have to ensure that it is easier for the people or for the animals to move from one place to the other rather than being stuck. When they are moving, this is where they are the most susceptible. This is where they can be hunted. This is where they may even come in front of vehicles, etc. So the government has to preserve them. I'll give you an example. If you are from Dehradun, or if you have traveled to Dehradun, I'll give you an example of there. Uh, so I remember as a kid, we used to go to Dehradun. My Masi used to live in Dehradun. So we used to go by train. And this train used to go through the Rajaji National Park. So there's a Rajaji National Park close to Dehradun, and the train used to go through that. And we heard so many times that the train goes to Rajaji National Park. There were so many instances of elephants coming in front of trains and them being killed. There were multiple instances of elephants coming in front of train and being killed because the train goes to the Rajaji National Park. Now, national parks are huge. So you can't have a railway track that goes beyond this. A railway track has to go there only. But then you have to make safe corridors for elephants so that they can't really come, or they don't really come in front of the train. That is the entire idea of elephant corridor, corridor for any specific animal. Now, the report not just says about, or doesn't just mention about the use of these corridors, it also has a lot of other data. For example, as per the report, the government of India has identified 60 new corridors that will be used by elephants from to move from one place to the other. Now the total number of elephant corridors in the country has moved to 150. Earlier they were about 88, now we are close to 150. West Bengal has the highest number of these elephant corridors. Can this fact be asked? Yes, this fact can be asked. So please remember this. Try and make an effort to remember this. West Bengal has the highest number of identified elephant corridors in India, about 26 of them. Also, the government of India, the report says that 150 elephant corridors in 15 states have been categorized into four different categories: northern, northeast, east, central, and the southern corridors. Also, there are six transnational corridors between India and Nepal. So, do remember this fact as well, that we have elephant corridors even going from one country to the other. So, even if the elephants are moving freely from India to Nepal or Nepal to India, they are allowed to do that under these elephant corridors. Also, as per this report, there has been an increase in the movement of the elephants. Elephant ranges have increased, so they have moved to newer areas where they were not found earlier. Many of the elephants have moved to northern Andhra Pradesh, Vidarbh, southern Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, where they were not found earlier in large numbers. Apart from this, the government of India has been trying to make sure that all these elephant corridors, etc., are rejuvenated. But there have been some elephant corridors that have not been used. They have seen increased human activity. Whenever we have increased human activity, you will see the movement of elephants will reduce drastically, because obviously for the elephants, from their point of view, moving through the areas where human activity has increased is not safe for them. So there are some corridors from which the elephant activity has reduced because of increased human presence. There are about 29 of those corridors that have recorded a decline in the elephant usage, or elephants have not been using it because of encroachment, mining, etc. Please remember, almost every year we do have at least one or two questions, sometimes even more, about certain animal species. This time also we had, I think, two or three questions about certain animal species. This time, the cheetahs are in the news. Many of them have died in the Kuno National Park. So, these species related news are important. Generally, the UPSC does reserve a space of 2 to 3 questions for these species related stuff that comes up. So, if such a report has come up, please do not ignore this from both the prelims and the mains examination point of view, especially from the prelims. You do expect to see certain questions, a few questions coming in from this topic as well. Now, as I said, animal or elephant corridors are nothing but dedicated, safe places made for the movement of animals. If the elephant has to go from one forest to the other forest in search of food, in search of other places, they should have dedicated places. They should not have to cross over the road or go through any human settlement, etc. These are made in such a manner so that there's a buffer always between the human population and the wildlife population. This is the entire idea that the elephant corridors actually follow. Also, since we are on the topic of elephants, I wanted to give you a few details about India's Project Elephant. As you know, the government of India runs a lot of these projects: Project Tiger, Elephant, Rhino, etc. Project Gharyal, also, that we don't really hear a lot about. Project Elephant in itself was extremely important. 1992, it started with the objective to protect the animals and their habitat, for the welfare of the captive elephants, and also for the issue of animal man conflict. Also, one more thing: elephants are one of the few wild animals in India that are allowed to be captive. Captive means captive means owned by certain people. Captive means owned by certain people. So there are certain elephants which are owned by certain people. So elephants in India, in certain categories with licenses and everything, are allowed to be captive as well. Project Elephant makes sure that even the captive elephants are looked into, even their welfare is a responsibility of the government only. It's not just because they are owned by some private individual, the government will not look into them. The government takes the responsibility of these captive elephants as well. The Ministry of Environment gives enough financial and technical support for the welfare of these elephants in India. Also, the Asian elephant, as per the IUCN, is endangered. Remember this. In the sites, it is in Appendix 1, and in WPA, it is Schedule 1. I hope all of you know what this is. So, basically, Wildlife Protection Act 1972 is a law that we have in India, under which there are different categories of animals. So, basically, animals in Schedule 1 are the most protected ones. Most protected means if you kill them, if you harm them, you will get the maximum punishment. Then we have Schedule 2. Schedule 2 is slightly lesser punishment, but still you get a fair bit of punishment. Similarly, we have Schedule 3, 4, etc. So basically, this is what schedule is of Wildlife Protection Act. Schedule 1's most important, like lion, tiger, etc. Schedule 2, 3, 4, etc. Similarly, we have CITES. What is CITE? So CITES is an international treaty that talks about the movement of endangered animals. So endangered animals being moved from one country to the other country, endangered animal being bought and sold. That is what CITES is. CITES Appendix 1 again means the most protected species in international movement, in international trade and other movement. So again, in CITES treaty also, they have been given the highest level of protection, Appendix 1. And in our India's Wildlife Protection Act, again, they have been put in Schedule 1, where you have the biggest or the most important animals that are reserved there. Okay, pretty simple, straightforward question. Let's see how many of you can Google and answer this. Just kidding. Don't Google, huh? Tell me. 41% people were able to Google in 15 seconds. Very good speed. Others, I'm sorry, man. 15 seconds was not enough for your internet connection, maybe. Okay, so the answer here actually is Karnataka. A lot of people also said Kerala. It's Karnataka actually that has the largest number of elephants in India. If you want, this is the data. So, the largest number of elephants in India in Karnataka. It was again in the news because just 1 month back on the 10th, on 9th of August, we had the elephant census 2023. So, elephant census 2023 came out and it said that Karnataka still has the largest number of elephants. That is about 6395. Elephant population has been increasing. Guys, don't worry. See, if you did not Google and you got the answer right, don't be offended. Just take a chill pill. Okay, I'm just kidding. Don't worry. You got the answer right, perfect. Be happy. Don't worry. You did not Google, great. Perfect. Okay. It's 9:30 in the night. If you can't even enjoy a joke, what's the point of your life, yeah? Okay. I know you did not Google. Don't worry. Chill. Anyways, before going on to the next topic, let me quickly take up a few questions. If there are any questions, that is. Rao Sahab, good name, man. Rao Sahab has a question. What is captive? Rao Sahab, captive means to own privately. To own privately. Then Santosh is saying, why elephant move towards north like MP? Initially not available here. No, no, it's not that there's a specific reason why they are moving towards the north. Uh, they are not going to take part in the G20 summit, all going towards the north. Nothing like that. It's just that it's an interesting trend that they have gone into certain areas where they were not seen earlier. There's no specific reason for that, so don't worry. Then I have a question. Yusra has a question. Why the corridors are for elephants only? No, no, no. These are for there are corridors for multiple elephants. Just that the report that we are discussing was the elephant corridor report because that was released last week. That's why. Nothing else. It's not that we are biased towards elephant and we only make corridors for elephant and other animals are not allowed. Nothing like that. Don't worry. Okay. Then I have a question from Janani. What are the other wild animals that are allowed for captive in India? So there are some. I think there are certain snakes that are allowed, if I remember correctly, and there are a few. There is a long list. Snakes, etc., also allowed in certain cases only. Siam is saying, what is the maximum punishment? Is it death sentence? For what, man? Death sentence for what? You can't leave a question like death sentence question mark. Give a context also, right? Sijo is saying PM consists of PM. I hope you mean particulate matter. Particulate matter doesn't consist. PM is what? PM is dust particles that you have. So PM, when we say, we mean the small little particles in the air. That is what we mean by PM, particulate matter. It can be dust, it can be other materials that you inhale. Santosh is saying, is it important to know all the red list species in IUCN? See, the point is, it's not possible to remember all. So I know for a fact the problem is you can just maybe try and remember the ones that are in the news. But again, the problem is if you actually see and try and make a list of it, it would actually become pretty difficult for you. So I would not say that you would have to remember all of that, but yeah, just try and see the ones that are in the news. For example, this animal corridor report came in, so animal becomes important. So that's how it works. Then Ashwin is saying, what is the punishment if animals under Schedule 1 were traded or hunted? It's not death penalty, if that is what you're asking. I don't remember exactly, but it's not death penalty. Don't worry. It's jail term for a few years. If I remember, 3 or 5, I think, something like that. It's not death penalty. Don't worry. You're not going to be killed. Um, I don't know why you are saying Salman Khan. I did not say anything. So please don't write Salman Khan in the chat. Okay? Then people will blame me. Okay. I did not say anything. Anyways. Okay, I'll take one or two more and then we'll go ahead. Uh, uh, Thithla, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Okay, Thithla has a question. This corridor are only for elephants. Why not give other animals to cross the road? See, you're not. Again, if we build a corridor for elephant, do you think if a dog comes in and we will stop them? No, 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 stop, stop, stop. This is only for elephant. You can't come. No, it's not that when a dog comes in, we will give them a chalan that, oh, how come you are here? This is just for elephant. No, it's a corridor built mainly in those areas where we have an elephant population. So meant for elephant. But then it doesn't really mean that if someone else comes in, you'll be like, oh, stop, stop, stop. Where are you going? No, 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 take a right. We can't do that, right? So it's mainly for elephants built in those areas where it's a mainly elephant habitat. But if with the elephant someone also has to walk in, who is there to stop? No one is there to stop. Don't worry. Again, don't worry. We are thinking about other animals also. We are not just thinking about elephants. Don't worry about that. Okay. Then Asif is saying, current affair remains an issue for me. I'm studying newspaper. Oh, see, if you have very specific questions about yourself, let's try and answer, question them. Let's try and reserve them for the very end. Because if it's your problem, then why would other people want to hear it, right? Okay. Um, okay. Chalo. The next one then. The next news, it's a pretty short news, actually, not a very big news, just a bit of a fact that you would need to remember. India now has its first carbon negative garrison. What is garrison? Garrison basically it's an army establishment. Anything related to army, you can call these cant areas where people army people live. You can call these army institutions, research institutions as well. So garrison is mainly those real estate owned by the army. They can really usually be called as garrison. So garrisons are places where the army people usually live or they undertake some research, etc. So we have our first carbon negative garrison. Now, what exactly is this? Let's try and understand this. So basically, we have a kind of a college in Pune for the armed forces, which is called Pune CME. It has just installed a 7 megawatt solar power plant and it has become first carbon negative garrison. Now, what do you mean by carbon negative? Basically, what is carbon negative? Carbon negative simply means that you are getting rid of more carbon than what you are making. So, if you are, let's say, producing certain carbon, but you are getting rid of more than that, then it becomes carbon negative. So, basically means you are helping the environment at the end of the day. So they have become carbon negative. That is just a very small bit of news. I do not think it is very relevant for the examination, but because it was in the news, we're just discussing it. CME stands for College of Military Engineering. College of Military Engineering. So basically, people who go in the military and they work in the technical fields, usually for example, people who have undertaken, let's say, engineering, after which they join the army, they usually go to Pune CME to get training about technical courses. For example, let's say, uh, I'll give you a simple example. So let's assume there is a unit of the army that is going ahead. They are going on a mission and they see that there is a river kind of a thing that they have to cross. Now, how do they cross the river? They would have to build some kind of a pull over it, right? Some kind of a pull or some kind of, let's say, a corridor has to be built, not the elephant corridor, but a corridor has to be built. So who will do that? This is where these army engineers come in. So this is what they're trained for. Let's say building these bridges, building these pulls very quickly so that they can accommodate the army movement. So their training usually happens in these places. This is just a very simplistic example of what they do. Obviously, they do stuff that is much more dangerous and much bigger than this, but this is the general stuff that they do at the CME. So a lot of projects are taken up. um, they have also been working to reduce their own carbon footprint. The government of India, in fact, has given directive to all its buildings, to all its institution, ministries, etc., to reduce their carbon footprint as much as possible. Those who are asking carbon negative simply means when you consume more carbon, take out more carbon from the atmosphere as compared to what you actually produce. So, for example, I'll give you a simple example. Why are trees called carbon sink? What do the trees breathe? So, trees breathe in carbon dioxide. So, what they are doing, they're absorbing the carbon. So, they are carbon sink. So, similarly, when you have a building that intakes more carbon as compared to what it actually gives out when it is making energy, that is called carbon negative building. That is very, very good for the environment. The lesser carbon you emit, the lesser is your carbon footprint, the more environment friendly are you. The lesser the carbon footprint, the lesser carbon that you're producing, the better you are. As simple as that. So basically, this is actually what is happening here. The CME has become this. Now, as I said again, they have a lot of different tasks, but we are not going into detail of that. The news mainly is about how this institute that has been training the army engineers for technical trainings, etc., have come in and they have been able to make sure that as a building they become carbon negative. As we discussed here, carbon negative is an entity that emits zero or negative carbon dioxide. They intake more carbon dioxide as compared to what they are giving out in the environment. So overall, the equation is that they are impacting the environment in a positive manner rather than in a negative manner. Now, as I said, this was just a small bit of the news. Rather than focusing more on that, I would like to bring your attention more towards what the government of India overall has been doing to increase our solar production, what we have been doing to make sure that our solar energy targets are met in the near future. The government of India has released a lot of new initiatives. We have the solar power scheme, where the government is building these humongous places which were not used earlier, to spread out a lot of solar panels there to build more energy. We also have the rooftop solar scheme. Almost every government building at the top of its roof now has solar panels. You go to Delhi metro station, a lot of Delhi metro station at the roof, they have their solar panels. Now, a lot of state governments are even encouraging people, if they want to get the rooftop solar power, they are being given at a subsidized price across the country. We also have the National Solar Mission, which is again an initiative by the government of India and the state governments, encouraging more and more energy to be generated through solar. We have the SISTI scheme as well. SISTI stands for Sustainable Rooftop Implementation of Solar Transfiguration of India. Similarly, India is a founding member of the International Solar Alliance. A lot of these initiatives have been taken up. One other thing that the government did was a PM Kusum scheme. Kusum stands for Kisan Urja Suraksha Evam Utthan Mahabhiyan. Basically, the idea is that the farmers have been encouraged to use solar pumps first. Apart from using solar pumps to take out water, they have also been encouraged that if you have empty land where you are not cultivating anything, you can use that land also to produce solar energy as much as possible. The government of India has even offered them that if you produce excess electricity that you are not using, we can even buy back. All that has been done under the PM Kusum scheme. Now, see, there are two ways to look at it. First, the progress that we have been making, especially in terms of solar, is remarkable. Our solar energy generation is increasing continuously. That is also seen in the cost. Whenever any energy increases its production, the cost of producing energy will come down drastically. Solar energy production used to cost a lot more about 10 years back. The cost of producing solar energy has reduced drastically. But the problem here is, with solar, the problem will always remain of storage. What do you do to store all this energy? Because you can't use solar in the night. You can produce solar energy in the morning, but then how do you actually use it in the night? How do you store so much energy? How do you build so many batteries? Because that is still not viable. Building batteries of humongous sizes, that again is not the best option possible. Also, building batteries that can hold so much energy in lesser size is still a big challenge that no country in the world has been able to master right now. Every country right now knows how to produce solar energy. They're increasing their production, but again, the problem of how to store it for odd hours has not been solved. And thus, the problem is, how do you make it a sustainable business? Because at the end of the day, in the night, if you can't use solar, you will have to resort to your fossil fuel, coal power plants, and that is what is happening with India. Even right now, the coal power plant, as I said in the beginning of the class, still remain a reality, because solar is good as long as we can make the energy and consume it right then and there. But what if you have to store it and use it later on? There has not been any solution found out for that. From this part, I have a mains practice question for you rather than a prelims practice question. I have a couple of these mixed up. So, whenever you have time, you can try and write an answer to this. What are the major challenges faced by India in promoting and implementing the use of solar energy as a sustainable source of energy? So, maybe you can try and write an answer to this as well. Okay. Before we move on to the BRICS expansion, let me quickly take up a few questions. Kishan is saying, what about solar wastage? See, we are at a very interesting stage right now. Usually, solar panels have an age of 12, 13, 14 years. India's solar program mainly is not 12, 13 years old. There will be a problem of solar wastage, water over solar panels that have expired, but India has not entered that stage. We will enter that stage in the coming few years. That will be a big challenge. It remains to be seen how we resolve that. But right now, we are not at that stage. Lakshmi, conclusion to that question is that solar is the future, but we'll have to first hope that all these pitfalls and challenges are taken care of. Syam is saying, is there any disadvantage in solar power? Is it completely environment friendly in nature? Syam, see, the disadvantage, as I said, is this only, that in order to store solar energy, you'll make batteries. To make batteries, you'll again harm the environment. That is a problem. Also, how do you make solar panels? If you're making solar panels, which are polluting the environment only, then there's nothing that is good about that. Divya is saying something about G20. Divya, we have been discussing about G20 for the last 1 year. Our government has forced us to discuss this every week. Nothing new has happened. Let the summit be over. Maybe then we'll see something new coming up. But right now, I don't think anything new has come up. Just that I'm talking to people in Delhi, they are hating it. They are just stuck in traffic jam every single day for the last 1 month or so. Um Dilip is saying, please explain carbon sink, carbon negative, and carbon capturing with examples. So, Dilip, trees basically are carbon sink, and carbon capturing is the same thing. They take out or the CO2 from the environment. So, when they take out CO2 from the environment has lesser carbon, as simple as that. So, what they do is carbon capturing. When you have more of these, when you have the entire forest, you can call them carbon sink. So carbon sink is an area where you are actually taking out the oxygen, as simple as that. Carbon negative. Okay, I'll give you an example of carbon. So carbon negative, for example, there is a let's say there is a building. Okay, now this building, let's assume, emits 20 tons of carbon by its energy consumption, by driving, by having machines running of cars, etc., that emit fuel. So let's say they emit 20 tons of carbon, but the same building now has so many trees that these, sorry, my drawing is extremely bad. As you can see, these are the only trees that I can make. So let's assume that the same building has these trees that are taking in, consuming more than 20 tons of carbon. Then it becomes a carbon negative building. When it consumes more than 20 tons of carbon, it becomes a carbon negative building overall. That is how it works. Santosh is saying, how do we store electricity made by thermal power plants? How do we store electricity made by thermal power plants? So thermal power plants, they don't store electricity, na? They make electricity and then it is generated. See, the thermal power plants, they run and you can run them 24/7. They basically make electricity, it is supplied to your houses. With the solar part, the problem is you can't make solar energy in the night. Let's say in the night you want electricity, then what do you do with that? How do you make it? You ultimately have to run your solar power plant. So they don't store electricity as the thermal power plants. So don't think of thermal power plant, don't think that someone else is storing electricity. Nidhi, carbon footprint means how much carbon you emit. That is your carbon footprint. So in this building, for example, as I said, 20 tons of carbon is your carbon footprint. So how much carbon are you emitting in your machines, in your food, by driving a car or whatever you are doing? How much carbon you're emitting is called your carbon footprint. Okay. Um, okay, let's move ahead then. Next is BRICS expansion, something that was in the news, which I am sure all of you would have seen. BRICS, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, is a group that has now been expanded. Many other countries are being included. Officially, they will become a part in 2024. So far, an official announcement has been made. Now, BRICS is something about which we used to be very excited a few years back. So, basically, what happens, there comes a period for a few years where we become very excited about some group, and then that period dies down, and then we move on to some other group. For example, BRICS, we were very excited about 2013, 14, and let's say 15 also. Then there came a period where we were very excited about the SCO. Then we were very excited recently about the BIMSTEC also. BIMSTEC was very much in the news 2019, 2020, even 21. And now basically we have moved on to COD or I2, U2. Now G20 is the flavor. So basically we are like that kind of a boy that cannot stick to one girlfriend, or a girl that cannot stick to one boyfriend. We basically keep on changing time and time again. And then we basically, now we are with COD, I2, U2, G20. This is where we are right now. Anyways, now BRICS has again come back in the news. Why? Because of the BRICS summit that was held recently in South Africa, and the BRICS has been expanded. The most interesting part about BRICS is that it started as BRIC. This was not started by any of these countries. It was not Brazil, China, Russia, or India that started it. It was actually started by, or not even started. There was an economist, Jim O'Neill, who wrote an article a few years back. In this article, he had said that the emerging countries around the world, the emerging economies, are BRIC: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. So he wrote an article a long time back. Learning from that article, these countries thought, oh, let's make a group. So they made a group together, BRIC, and then South Africa joined in later on. It became BRICS. Since then, a lot of other countries have been applying that they want to join these groups. See, the idea is simple. If you look at the major international organizations around the world. Let's talk about UN, World Bank, and IMF. Right? These are the three premier organizations. In these three premier organizations, the problem is these are organizations which have been ruled and controlled by a handful of countries. So, UN, as you can see, it is mainly controlled by the P5. World Bank, IMF, World Bank so far has never had a non American head. Every head of the World Bank has always been an American citizen without any exception. Similarly, with IMF, every IMF head is a European citizen, no exception. US has so much monopoly in the IMF or in the World Bank that if they don't want to give you a loan, they will never give you a loan. Just by US saying no, IMF will never be able to give you a loan. So every country obviously is looking for an alternative. There is something called New International Economic Order. New International Economic Order, NIEO. It means that nations around the world are trying to have an alternate to the existing group, existing World Bank, IMF, their duopoly. That is where the countries see a ray of hope where US or European countries are not present. That is BRICS. So now what has happened? Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Ethiopia, and Argentina, they will be joining BRICS very soon. So BRICS will now have participation from a lot of other regions of the world as well. Officially, they will become members on Jan 1, 2024. It will be BRICS 11 now. What happens after the expansion? That's not really clear. Is it good news for India? See, many countries or many experts are saying that India should not be really attached with the BRICS because at the end of the day, no matter what happens in the BRICS or the SCO, they will always be led by China because the presence that China has here is much more ominous as compared to India or other countries. In fact, the reason why other countries want to join this group is mainly because of the presence of China. They know that China can help them economically, etc. So many experts are of the view that India should not really be extremely excited about these groups, especially because they are being led by China. On the other hand, on the other hand, you can also argue that rather than being cut off from the world, it's good to be involved and see what China is up to. There's a famous saying, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. So, if you really want to be involved and if you really want to see what China is doing, rather than actually cutting off from it, be a part of this group and see and observe what is happening. So, there are two different views that are given here. But again, the reality is, if you look at BRICS, apart from Russia and China, we do not really have a lot of trade with South Africa or Brazil. They are not really the countries that feature at the top of our mind. You know about South Africa because both of us play cricket. You know about Brazil because some people love football. But if you look at the bilateral relationship between the two, that is India, South Africa, or India, Brazil, there's nothing really much. India's relationship mostly is amongst these groups with China and Russia only. So many people think it's a forced grouping of people coming together. Anyways, BRICS does have a sizable presence. South Africa was invited to join in 2010, after which the group adopted the acronym BRICS. Also, BRICS has again huge presence around the world. If you see, there are five countries together, they make up 41% of the global population. Do you have to remember these numbers? Not really. Don't really remember these numbers. These are again numbers which are extremely heavy. These are just made up numbers that anyone can actually make. Apart from this, BRICS has started a few initiatives because, again, as I said, when BRICS started, the idea was that we would want an alternate to the existing mechanism of World Bank, IMF, etc. So, World Bank, IMF existence had to be cut down, and that is why BRICS started something called the New Development Bank, for example. New Development Bank was an alternative to the World Bank only. It was a World Bank alternative because, again, if you had to go and take a loan from the World Bank, you had to make sure that you have good relationship with all these countries. Also, World Bank, when it gives you the loan, it also puts conditions, unlike the IMF also. So putting those conditions, conditionalities, etc., many of the countries did not really like it, and that is why they thought of going ahead and having an alternate to it. Similarly, we have the CRA. This was supposed to be IMF alternative. I hope all of you know the difference between IMF and the World Bank, right? Just in case you don't know, let me quickly tell you. Basically, the idea is World Bank gives you the loan for development projects. For example, you have to build a road, you have to build a dam, any poverty elevation program, the World Bank will give you the loan. When will IMF give you the loan? If you don't have any dollars left to buy petrol, when you have a balance of payment crisis, when you don't have enough foreign currency for trading, like what happened with Sri Lanka, what happened with Pakistan, then IMF will give you the loan. So IMF and World Bank are very different from each other. World Bank gives loan for development purposes. IMF gives you loan when you have a balance of payment crisis. So the alternate for IMF was contingent reserve arrangement, and the new development bank is supposed to be an alternate for the World Bank set up by the BRICS. This is how the countries contributed money to this contingent reserve. As you can see, China contributed most of the money here also, showing who exactly is the boss. This has $100 billion reserve, which these countries can take whenever they have any requirement. China contributed $41 billion. Brazil, India, Russia contributed $18 billion each, and South Africa contributed $5 billion. And the voting rights also have been given in that proportion only as well. Apart from this, they also had some other initiatives, not really very significant. In August 2021, the space agencies of all the five countries in BRICS decided to cooperate on remote sensing satellite constellation. So, the satellites that we have already sent, they will just share information with each other, make sure we can cover as much of the entire world as possible. This is how the remote sensing satellite constellation will work. That information is not really that important. This is an infographic which shows you about the impact of the expansion. After the expansion, what will increase? One of the key figures here is this. If you can see this, the interesting part is the new countries that are now coming in, a lot of them are very heavy oil producers. There is other change also in the BRICS, but the biggest change that is happening with the coming up or with the inception of the new members will be the oil production will go up significantly. Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, when all of these become members, the oil production capacity of BRICS will be double. India is hoping that now, if we are a part of a common grouping with all these oil producing nations, maybe we will get a better deal out of it. That is what our hope is. But again, it's every country working in their own national interest. We are hoping we may get some good deal out of this when these become full time members of the BRICS. Okay, let's see if we can answer this question. Read this carefully. The time has started. And your time is up. 42% were able to answer this correctly. All three are actually correct. All three here are correct about BRICS. The headquarters of the new development bank, that is the BRICS Bank, is in Shanghai. India hosted the 2021 BRICS Summit, and South Africa became a part in December 2010 and it became BRICS. All these three are correct statements, and the answer thus is C. Okay, let me quickly take up a few questions and then we'll go ahead. Divya has a question. I heard something about making new currency by BRICS that can replace dollar. Is it true? They did have a discussion about it. So basically, especially when Ukraine Russia war started and Russia was imposed with a lot of sanctions, Russia started this and China also liked it, that let's have a currency so that we can trade amongst ourselves without the dollar. India has not really been in favor of this as such. Because see, again, the problem is we have so much trade imbalance with China that even if we have a common BRICS currency, it would not really help us. So yes, Russia and China are mainly in favor and are focusing on this new BRICS currency. India has not really been in favor because if you look at India's trade, we have a trade surplus with USA, so we get more dollars from them. We have a trade surplus with European Union. So for us, for India, ditching the dollar may not be a very intelligent thing to do. On the other hand, we have such a big trade deficit with China that if we are flooded with this currency, we would not really know how to use it after or accept BRICS. So it's not really, it's something that they did focus on, but nothing that they actually finalized. Sunil is saying, how do we know how much carbon is being absorbed by a tree? Sunil, that is what the scientists are for, man. So don't worry, they know. It's like saying, how does the doctor know paracetamol will be able to reduce my pain? Because they have studied it, man. Then Snehal has a question. Just a second. Yeah, Snehal has a question. Please explain what will be the consequence on India if Beijing did not attend the G20 summit. See, Snehal, first of all, it's not that Beijing is not attending the summit. Xi Jinping is not coming first. So let's not see it as a boycott. It's not that no one from Chinese head of the government, that is Chinese premier, is coming. So China has a head of the government as a premier who is coming. Xi Jinping is not coming. Consequence of India, nothing really. See, again, for China, from their point of view, they would like to remain in the news. If they would have come to India, India would have been in the news as the host. Now they have announced we are not coming, so now they are in the news. It would not really have any impact on India as such, to be true. If they have to play the obstruction and they have to see, at the end of the day, the G20 gives a statement. It has to be a collaborative statement where every country has to say yes. If China has to say no and not agree to it, then either way, who is coming, who is not coming, doesn't really matter. So it doesn't really impact India as such. Don't worry. Then I have a question from Akash. There was an article in the newspaper saying BRICS works on the base of consensus. What is the purpose of having voting rights? No, Akash. Voting rights are for that reserve. World Bank has voting rights, IMF has voting rights. So voting rights are not about BRICS. Voting rights are about that reserve. For example, when that reserve has to give a loan to someone, then the voting will happen. Voting rights are for that. When you say BRICS works on consensus, what it means is, for example, let's say BRICS has to include a new member here. So, do they have to include, do they not have to include someone? That works on consensus. Also, one more thing, some people might not have seen this. Not every country is keen on joining BRICS. Like Indonesia, for example, was invited to join BRICS, but Indonesia declined that we don't want to join BRICS because they are not happy with China. So there are countries on both the sides. Akash has a question. There was an article in the paper. Acha, I've answered this already. Okay, so these were the questions given. Okay, okay, one more. Rao Sahib has a question. What are the implications of adding new countries? Again, only the time will tell. Nothing for now. But again, as I said, India is hoping mainly from the point of view of more oil producing nations becoming a part, maybe to get a better deal from them. But again, what are the implications in the long run? You'll only see. It does help China mainly to act as the leader of a bigger group. So it increases their potential, it increases their standing, obviously. From India's point of view, only the time will tell if we are able to improve our relationship coming into such a group. Okay. The kind of random questions I get sometimes, I wonder if the next question is, Sir, my height is not increasing. What do I do? Sir, I'm not able to sleep. What do I do? Let's focus on what we are studying, man. Okay. So let's move ahead then. next, next, let's focus on a new initiative by the government of India. Heal in India initiative. It's not a very recent initiative. Basically, I'll tell you what this is about. The government of India has been focusing for a long time on medical tourism in India. So we have been focusing for a long time for medical tourism in India. Basically, if you go outside India, medicine or healthcare is extremely expensive. It's crazy expensive. And I have a very close friend in the US, and he tells me that if you are injured, if you have an accident, please never call an ambulance, because if you call an ambulance, they will take so much money. Like, calling a normal ambulance can cost you $2,000 to $3,000, just an ambulance calling. $2,000 to $3,000 for just an ambulance to take you to the hospital. So medicine and healthcare is crazy expensive for a lot of very complex reasons. This is where India has actually become extremely affordable with quality healthcare for countries around the world. Medical tourism is a thing. Many countries come to India, patients come to India from all around the world to get themselves treated. The government of India is pushing that even more. We want patients to come into India. It's a good way to earn foreign exchange for India. It's a good way to improve our standing around the world. And Heal in India initiative is just the name for that only. That you can come and heal in India, because the government of India is trying to provide better infrastructure, not just for healthcare, but again for other facilities as well. Chennai, for example, has become the hub of medical tourism in India. A lot of, if you go to a, let's say, hospital in Chennai, you're a foreigner, they have package deal, they will give you, they have tie up with the hotels also, they'll make sure everything is taken care of. All that is a big boost to the economy as well. Now, I won't say there is something specific that can be asked here. Not a lot of things can be asked specifically from this in the prelims examination point of view. From the mains examination point of view, yes, it is a good topic. It can be asked. You should know some data about how medical tourism has been boosting in India. The government of India has been focusing on Indian philosophy of Seva and Atithi Devo Bhava, making sure that the government of India focuses a lot on medical value travel. We call it the MVT. Medical value travel means basically you come to India, get your treatment done at a very good value. You won't have to spend a lot of money, and you will get high quality healthcare. India is trying to become a global leader in this kind of medical tourism. Central and the state governments are collaborating to offer medicine, and not just medicine as such, allopathic medicine, even traditional medicine, that is Ayush as well. I hope all of you know what is Ayush. Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Naturopathy, Siddha, and Homeopathy, which is the Indian traditional medicine as such. This medical value tourism in India, this is what the government of India has been focusing on. Under this Heal in India, the government has tied up with 37 hospitals all across the entire country. The government of India has also been focusing on the PM Jan Arogya Yojana. That is not just making medical facilities for foreigners coming to India, but also making sure we have good medical facilities for people living in India as well. Medical Value Tourism, or MVT, is a online portal which will provide you all the information that you require if you're coming in for your treatment from outside India. So center government will launch the MVT online portal that will give you all the services that you require. You can book appointments, make payments, etc. See the government and the private hospitals available. This portal will also be linked with India's tourism website, the official tourism website of the government of India, called Incredible India. This is where you can get yourself treated. That is the government's idea of medical value tourism. Also, what is it that the government of India has been focusing on? We have launched something called a National Strategy and Roadmap for Medical and Wellness Tourism. We are focusing on making India a preferred wellness destination, strengthening our medical tourism, setting up the online medical value travel portal, promoting wellness tourism, etc. The numbers have actually shown foreign tourists coming to India, especially for medical purposes, has increased from 1.83 lakh in 2020 to 3.04 lakh in 2021. And we are hoping that it goes up because, again, it is a great chance for India to earn good foreign exchange and also improve our global standing as the international giver of medicine all across the entire world. A few examples of what the government of India has done in this regard. The government of India has started something called the e-medical visa and the medical visa for 156 countries, which can be given online. You just have to apply on the government website. The Ministry of Tourism also gives financial assistance for market development schemes. So people working in the field of tourism, they can also take help, including financial help from the Ministry of Tourism as well. Hospitals, etc., have been given accreditation by the government to take part in the medical tourism. So, government of India has also been giving a boost to the private sector as well. This graph also shows you how the number of patients coming to India for medical purposes has increased. These are the lockdown years. That is why we saw a decline. But again, the graph is going up. Since till 2019, we touched mark of almost 7 lakh medical tourists coming into India, which is a huge number. With the lockdown, the number of tourists obviously decreased, but again, this is picking up. So we have reached 7 lakh in 2019 itself. Okay, one question based on Ayush. Let's see if we can answer this. Read this carefully. The time has started. Okay, 11 11% people only got this right. This is actually A. Not an easy question to answer. I know. Third one is actually wrong. Why? This is not a central sector scheme. It's a central sponsored scheme. I hope all of you know the difference between central sector and central sponsored. Do you know the difference between these? Central sector, I'll just write it here, and central sponsored. Central sector basically means 100% funds will be given by central government. Central sponsored means usually 60-40, 60 by the center, 40 by the state. In Himalayan states, etc., 90-10. Himalayan states, northeastern state, 90-10. This is usually the case for central sponsored. So this is a central sponsored scheme, not a central sector scheme, and that is why the answer here is A. Okay. Uh, Guys, I know there are some questions that you have given to me. Let's do this. We just have two small topics remaining. Let's quickly go through these topics, and then I'll in the end I'll take whatever question that you have. Okay, so that those who don't have question they can leave. Let's first cover the last two remaining ones, and then I'll take up whatever question you have given to me, and then you can leave. Okay. So the second last topic that we have is emperor penguins. Emperor penguins are in the news for all the wrong reasons. It has been reported that melting ice in Antarctica has killed thousands of emperor penguin chicks. Now, this is again something that remains in the news because of climate change. This is not the first time that such a news has come in. Emperor penguins have been declining in population because of these climate change. Now, basically, this sea ice that is present from April to December, this is a platform where they breed, where they have their activities, where they grow up as such. And because this ice has not been stable, because it has been melting, these penguin chicks were unable to develop their adult wings and regulate their body temperature. Thus, they have drowned and frozen to death. So basically, they grow up, they become stronger, they develop their wings, which gives them the ability to swim in those extremely cold waters, as you would have seen on Discovery documentaries, etc. Because they have not been able to develop their adult wings, they have drowned and they have frozen to death, thousands and thousands of them. Now, again, this is mainly due to the climate change, mainly due to the ice sheet becoming thinner over the years. So, if you think that they are very cute, then you have to take the blame along with me. We are the ones to blame because of our activities, the climate change impact, the ice sheets have been becoming shrink thinner and thinner, and this is what they had to be dealt with. Emperor penguins are extremely important variety of the penguin species. The emperor penguin is the tallest and the heaviest of all these living penguins, and they're endemic to Antarctica. They only live there. They primarily are dependent on fish. Also, they can remain submerged about 20 minutes. That is how tough their skin is, remain submerged in the sub zero water. It is the only penguin that breeds during the Antarctic winter, live up to 20 years, etc., in the wild, and they are near threatened. So it's not that the population is going away, they are near threatened right now. That is what their situation is. These are the other pandemic species, or these are the other penguin species that we usually have. Little, crested, there's brush-tailed group, large group, etc. The large group ones are the emperor or the king penguins. As I said earlier, species-based questions are usually seen in the UPSC exam almost one or two every year. Let's see if we can answer this quickly. The time has started. Only 14% people. How many of you did not read this word? How many of you did not read this word? You had to tell which of these is incorrect and not the correct one. I see. Too much in a hurry to leave and sleep, huh? You have to tell the incorrect one, and that is why the answer is D. None of these is incorrect. All of these are true. All of these are true. All of these are the things that we just read. Open your eyes, man. Too sleepy, huh? We have read all these facts just now, 5 minutes back. So all of these are absolutely correct. They are found only in Antarctica. They are the largest member of the penguin group. They are the tallest and the heaviest of all the penguins. Okay, let's quickly go through the last one, and then I'll take up whatever question that you have, so that the others can leave. The last topic is a phrase that came in the news, not specifically relevant to UPSC. Let me tell you in the very beginning. There's a book that became very famous recently, Ikigai. I don't know how many of you have read this. Ikigai is a very famous book. It became an international bestseller very recently. It's actually a Japanese word. So basically, the simple idea of Ikigai means the reason for being. In simple terms, why are you alive? Or your life has more purpose than just earning money, not just sustaining yourself. So basically, it's kind of that kind of a group. Why is it in the news? Because there was an article recently that says Ikigai in agri can mitigate climate change effects and increase farmers' income. So basically, when these kind of headlines come in, these are good fodder material for you for the mains examination. They will not be asked in the prelims. There's nothing to be asked in the prelims exam as such, but they're good fodder material for the for the mains examination. When you're talking about, let's say, climate change or agriculture, sustainable agriculture, you can use these words that ikigai practices, etc. Can be. Now, what is ikigai? Let's try and understand that. Basically, I'll come to this in just a bit. Let's first go ahead. Ikigai is a Japanese word that means a reason for being. The simple idea is that you are living not just to earn money. The purpose of you living a life is much, much more than money. The purpose of your life, for example, is to leave it better for the next generation. It is essential to enhance your environment. Whatever decisions you take should be ethically sound. Whatever you eat, how you're consuming things, all of that should be kept. All of that decision should be taken, keeping in mind the sustainability of the nature. In simple terms, that is what ikigai is. So the idea is that in our agriculture also, we should use these techniques. The farmers, rather than actually just going ahead with making the most produce possible, exploiting as much soil as possible, they should not do that. They should actually sustain their agriculture practices to have a long term positive impact. This is the idea of agri ikagai. This will especially help the small landhold farmers to have better produce, even if they are not able to produce a lot in quantity, but focus much, much more on quality. That is the idea of agri ikigai, nothing more, nothing less. As I said, not really relevant for the prelims examination point of view, mostly a fodder material for the mains. Recently, the IPCC, that is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, also said that having different cropping patterns, diversifying our agriculture can actually be the answer to climate change and food shortages across the entire world. We can actually make sure that the greenhouse impact that we are seeing is reduced if we go ahead and diversify our cropping patterns. This is a kind of a practice question that you can expect from this part. But mostly, as I said, it's mostly fodder material for your mains examination. This brings us to the end of today's webinar. Just in time, I have a few minutes to answer your questions. If you don't have your question, you're free to leave. Yes, I'll show the leaderboard. Before leaving, this is a leaderboard. There are a couple of people who answered 6 questions rightly, all 6, in fact. Chinmay and Dr. Anandu, perfect. The great Googlers. Congratulations for answering all 6 questions correctly. And then we have a few people with 5 correct answers. So good job to them as well. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining in. I'll just quickly take up a few questions, and if you want, you can leave if you want. Uh, okay. Donovan has a question. Under what act do they form organizations at international level? Who will look into rules and regulation? Donovan, nothing like that. If 4 or 5 countries want to come up and join and make an international organization, they can. There's no permission required as such. If you have an organization that is, let's say, uh, that is regulated by UN or that has been accredited by the UN, then you have to be under the UN laws. But there's no restriction on how the countries can come up and make a organization. Sonam has a question. If medical tourism is increasing in India, but Indians are not able to afford it, also it is said that there's lack of health infrastructure in India. Why? So Sonam, you're a bit confused. Let's divide medical infrastructure in India into private and government. The problem that we have of medical infrastructure not being good in India is the government part. Because see, if you have money, then there's no problem of medical infrastructure in India. The problem of medical infrastructure in India is the government part. So the medical tourists who are coming from outside are not going into government hospitals. They are going into private hospitals. In private sector, there is no problem. You have your money, you go. There is no problem. Then I have a question from Vivek. Is there a fear of addition of Pakistan for BRICS? Why would you fear? Stop your infatuation of Pakistan. Nothing will happen if Pakistan comes or doesn't come in BRICS. Don't worry. Sham is saying why government initiate this policy but our health infrastructure is not developed. Guys, I have already answered questions. Whenever you say health infrastructure not developed, you are trying to point out towards government health infrastructure. Private hospitals are like five-star hotel these days, man. You have the money, you pay the money. So the medical tourism is happening in private sector. Then I have a question from Ashwin. How can we measure amount of carbon absorbed by trees? Ashwin, I already answered, man. Scientists know how to. It's like saying that how do we know how to fix a bone? Because the scientists have identified a manner. Then Vivek is saying, why can't we openly express our opposition against China? Vivek, we do. How openly do you want it? Do you want us to go to China and then express? You can't do that. The government does it. It's not that we don't, but again, you have to be diplomatic. That's what diplomacy is all about. Nazla is saying unable to manage time, suggest any strategy. Nazla, see, everyone has a different routine. You have to see where you are eating up your time. Is there any unproductive activity that you can kill? That is something that you have to individually ask yourself. Bayak is saying, will there be a name change for BRICS if these 6 countries join? Bayak, we'll have to see. Right now, it's being called BRICS plus 11. 11 as in total country, but we'll have to see if the name changes. Nothing as of now. Because officially they will join on the 1st of Jan next year. So we'll have to see. Perfect. So these were the questions given to me. Ashwin is saying difference between BRICS and BRICS Plus. There is nothing called BRICS Plus, Ashwin. So I don't know what is it that you're asking. Once again, thank you very much for your Teachers' Day wishes. I hope all of you are good and I hope you remember your teachers even after 90 minutes pass and there's not Teachers' Day tomorrow. Perfect. So thank you so much for joining in. Have a good day ahead. I hope you learned something new today. We'll see each other very soon in the next session. Bye bye. Good night. Jai Hind.